I was watching one of my binge series the other day called Sweet Magnolias. I think it's on Netflix. And the Sweet Magnolias are a group of three friends, three women, sister friends. And whenever they have a problem or something to celebrate or some piece of information that needs to be shared right away, one of them calls the other two and says, it's time to pour it out. And then they go to that person's home and they pour margaritas and sit around and drink their margaritas and share whatever it is they need to share. And ultimately come up with a solution or a group hug or whatever needs to be done for whatever was going on. And when you watch those sections of the episodes, you can't help but long for a group of friends like that. You can't help but long to be part of the Sweet Magnolias group, where you can just call your friends and they buzz on over to your house and you pour a glass of something and know that they will be there for you. It's that connection. It's that friendship. Women like to call it sisterhood. It's that sisterhood connection. And I feel like we don't have opportunity for that connection today. And we want it, but we don't know how to get it. We've lost the ideas of how to get it. We've kind of lost the opportunity, or at least the thought that the opportunity is there to get it. So let's talk about how not connected we are and why that is right here in the Wish House. So go pour out your favorite beverage and let's get to it. I can't tell you how completely envious I am of the Sweet Magnolias Club. And it's such a television fantasy. I mean, these ladies are always in amazing outfits and they all have lovely homes and cool cars. And somehow they have time in the day to go pour it out and drink in fancy glasses. And most often they have snacks at these little poured out events. And all of their live situations get worked out in the poured out sessions. And I desperately want poured out girls. It's not that I don't have close poured out girlfriends, but at my stage of life, most of my friends don't live near me. We've all gone off in different directions and settled in different places. My closest, nearest, and dearest live all over the country. One thing about the Sweet Magnolias, they've been there for each other through almost all of their lives. And the friends that I've had with me who have seen me through the teenage years, the 20s, the marriage, the baby years, the divorce years, the autism years, the raising Anthony years, autism years are going to be always. They're everywhere, but in my neighborhood. So I think I'm not only longing for that camaraderie in general, but I'm longing for the sisterhood to be in my backyard. I want it easily accessible. I cannot tell you how many times I text my gal pals and suggest they move into my neighborhood whenever there's a house for sale. It's not going to happen, but for the moment I'm suggesting it, it really feels like it could be real. I miss those kind of connections, and I believe that we are the most disconnected we have been in forever. And the odd thing about it is we have far more ways to be connected. So how is that possible? How can we have so many devices that are intending to keep us connected, but we feel so lonely? I often say we don't have any shared experiences anymore. We don't have any collective shared experiences. Everyone focuses on politics. That's kind of a shared experience, but we know that can leave us feeling frustrated or lonely. Come to think of it, our national shared experiences, politics and sports events, which can also feel us feeling disappointed, they're kind of polarizing in a way. So that's not helpful to connection. When I grew up, television was a shared experience. You had a particular television show that came on the same night, the same time, every week. And those seasons lasted a long time, 39 weeks of a television series, 39 episodes to watch, and everybody watched the show. And if you missed it, that was too bad for you. You might be lucky enough to catch it in summer reruns. When I was thinking about this, that those two words popped into my head. I haven't said summer reruns, in a really long time. But if you didn't catch it on summer reruns, you missed it. Basically, you might as well forget it. And then you were out of the loop of the collective shared experience. Even in the kid world, you knew The Wizard of Oz came on once a year. It's The Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown, once a year. Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, once a year. And you waited until that night. You collectively waited for that night. And then you watched the show. And then you went back to school the next day and talked about it. The same way the adults went back to work the next day and tried to figure out who shot JR. The water coolers had so many conversations. Was Rhoda actually going to get married? What was going to happen at the last episode of MASH? Even Batman, yes, the original Batman was broadcast in 2 parts. So you were always left hanging. You were always having that conversation to the next night. Maybe Batman was the original cliffhanger episode originator. And most of the shows were shared with your family, almost always. The whole family was somehow gathered around the TV. Now, to be fair, I see little pictures of families sitting in Leave It to Beaver style fashion, all sitting around the TV. But that wasn't really the experience in my house. My mom watched TV with us often, and my brother and I always watched TV together. You know, you're going back, my childhood and adolescence. Now I sound like that. In my childhood and adolescence, but we only had the one TV in the house, and there weren't that many channels to watch. And we were still not using a remote. We were turning the little dial. So it was already a family event to be gathered around that TV. My dad used to peripherally be in the background. You know, like we watch a lot of TV at my uncle's because he had the color TV. We had black and white. He was a bachelor, as they used to say in those days. So he had extra money to have a color TV. But I remember the kitchen. You could see the TV from his kitchen. And my dad would often be in the kitchen, kind of glancing up at what we were watching while the rest of us were kind of gathered around. But it was a shared experience. And you were not only connected to your family, but with your neighbors and your town and your state and the country at large. Everybody was watching these TV shows at the same time. Now we have limited series that we binge. Mostly we binge by ourselves. Hours upon hours spent in solitude, watching something and then talking about it with your friend after you've seen 13 episodes. And then you have to wait a year and a half for the series to come back on. I don't even remember what happened a day and a half ago. Now I have to remember a year and a half later, what was the plot of the series that I was so connected to when I was connected to it. I mean, I watch some of these series and then they have these cliffhanging episodes, these cliffhanging endings, and I'm so breathless. And for a week, it's all I can talk about. And I can't wait until it comes back. I'm Googling to see when is that series coming back. But most oftentimes it doesn't come back for a year and a half to even 2 years. I'm waiting for series now that I haven't seen in 2 years. And then I lose interest. And I totally forget why I was so hyped up in the first place. And there's something odd about that. There's something disconnecting about that. There's something weird in that delivery. What started out feeling like a shared experience turns out to be not so shared at all. I remember TV family shows like Ed Sullivan on Sunday night. And when I was growing up, there was no shortage of variety shows. Sonny and Cher, Donnie and Marie, Carol Burnett. It seemed like if you had 1 or 2 hit records, you could have your own variety show. Tony Orlando and Dawn, so dating myself, The Captain and Tennille, Glenn Campbell. I think that was called Glenn Campbell's Good Time Hour. I could not get enough of these variety shows. And I have to tell you, as an aside, that's my secret dream, to not only have a variety show, but maybe a Christmas special. I loved Christmas specials. So I'm saying it out loud once again so I can manifest that. Still trying to figure out when and how I'm going to have my Christmas special, which is going to feature my extended family and have guest stars too. That's one of my biggest dreams, and I'm going to make it happen. And as I said in the last podcast, I have 20 years to make that happen. I think 20 years is doable to get my Christmas special. I come up with how to make that variety holiday show. I saw recently that there's kind of a little facsimile of a variety show thing happening here and there on streaming stations. Different young stars have their own little specials. But you can kind of watch it in the morning or the afternoon or in the night, and you can watch it all alone or invite a friend over, I guess. But it's not the same. We're void of these shared experiences. And the telephone. Remember being on the telephone, like on the actual telephone. Remember feeling as if you had telephone privilege in your family? My telephone privilege came from me in my early teens, where I had friends that would actively call the house for a chat. And we didn't have our own teenage phone line, although my brother in his later years of high school did have one. I'm not over it. It's probably 1977. I was moved out of the house into college by then. Still not over that he had his own phone line, but I digress. Those days when I was growing up, the phone was still attached to the wall. And up to my mid-teenage years, it was a rotary dial. You had a dial. And then we got something called touch tone, was a little push button. And I remember how cool I thought it was that we had gotten a touch tone phone. It was beige. What I wouldn't give now to go back to the rotary with the phone attached to the wall. What's the famous saying? When the phone was tied with a wire, humans were free. There's nothing like talking on the handheld telephone. Talking on the phone was a daily activity. You know, those pictures you see of teenage girls kind of sprawled on their bed, you know, like in Bye Bye Birdie, chatting it up on the phone. That was a real thing. It was a real thing as an adult as well. I made time to call my friends and they made time to call me. And we spent hours on the phone. We would discuss everything. Romantic lives, what new songs were coming out that we liked. We were still accessing our music then, you know, on a radio. Our hopes and dreams, what we wanted to do in the future. We would discuss clothes and decorations for our houses or apartments in the early days. And there was no FaceTime. You couldn't see anybody and you really couldn't do much while you were on the phone, unless you had a very long cord that was attached to your phone so you could walk around a bit. But talking and connecting was such an important part of our lives. And then came the iPhones, our devices, our Androids, iPads. And we began texting. And in the beginning, texting seemed so cool to me. I remember the first time I got a text, it was from my friend Samantha. And my phone kept dinging and making all of these sounds. And I didn't know what it was. And finally, it wasn't even the iPhone yet. It was like a little bit of a box phone, like you almost looked like a mini laptop. And finally, I saw some writing and I realized, everybody was talking about texting, that I'd received my first text. And I thought in the beginning that was like really cool. You could jot down a few things to your friend. I really thought that's what it was for, jotting a few things down to your friend. But we've gotten to the point where we don't even want to talk. We don't talk on the phone anymore. We only want to text. And texting has become a multitasking event. You can do a million things, reading, texting. You're not invested. Do you know, I have a friend, I actually have a lot of friends that this relates to, but I have one friend in particular. She doesn't live near me, so I don't see her. I don't think I've heard her voice in, I'm going to say, 5 years. I have not heard her voice in 5 years. She's a text girl. We only text. Well, I will say there's a little bit of an exception to that. Once in a while, we do a voice message. You know, you can push this little button and you can make a little voice message that once you hear it, it like self-destructs. Like you have to push to keep it. So we once in a while do voice phone messages. If we either get lazy from texting or there's just too much to say that would go in that text, so we voice message it. But so I guess I've actually heard her voice through that. But I've not heard her voice in 5 years. We've not said hello in 5 years. Think about that. We don't talk. We message. We text. It's a virtual connection and it's not real. In the beginning of texting, I used to think I had to get back to the person right away. But our lives have become so overwhelmed with texts and people wanting just a small amount of our time and us wanting just a small amount of other people's time that it's become so overwhelming that the connection that we've developed doesn't even feel good anymore. It doesn't feel good. And I'm now to the point where I'm so overwhelmed with it that getting back to the multitude of people that need that little piece of my time, I can't accomplish it. So I've begun to make appointments with friends. Can I talk to you Sunday morning? This means we're going to block out time, maybe an hour, if it's a good friend I need to chat with about what's happening in our lives. And I guess those phone appointments are fine, but what does that say? The connection has become almost obsolete. We don't seem to have the time anymore. And I hesitate to say, but I think the desire has kind of been pushed down so far. I'm not even sure we have that, at least in our conscious top of mind anymore. I was oddly watching a reel the other day, came up on my For You page. I think there's something to the fact, because I was thinking about this, in organizing some thoughts to chat with you. They say the phone can hear you or read your thoughts. I think it can, because I saw this reel, and it was Madonna, of all people. And she was speaking about this very thing, this lack of connection. I'm paraphrasing, but she said the internet is giving us the illusion that we become more connected. She used the word illusion a couple of times. She said, because we can connect with people so easily and so quickly and all over the world, it gives us the illusion that we are more connected. But she said the consciousness of people isn't really growing, that we're sharing more information, but it hasn't made us more accepting beings. It hasn't made us more tolerant or understanding. She mentioned fame. She said we're becoming famous, a fame we haven't truly worked for. We're becoming famous by pushing a button. How interesting is that? And now I'm going to take that into another little direction. That's because there's no depth. There's no true connection. There's no investment. There's no working for the friendship. There's no actual physical vibe. There's no real work for the fame that we achieve. And in so many ways, that connection, that virtual connection, is short-lived. And so we feel we're becoming lonely. And we are. We're becoming isolated in our own falsely connected virtual world, where we are mistaking thumbs up and hearts for true emotion. We're mistaking the amount of lives or the amount of comments for people that actually have our backs, for people that are really there in the real world. I know myself. I'll wish a happy birthday, or I'll send condolences. I'll comfort someone in need online. But then I don't follow up with a call to those people. I don't send a card. And I feel it's because I become used to thinking that this virtual connection or this virtual chorus that I've joined has given me the opportunity to feel I've done my part. But our part is not done. And I think that we come away from those experiences feeling so empty. I feel like we've lost the fine art of true connection. And it's taking our toll on our attention spans. Our attention spans are so short. We've been trained to be interested only for a minute or two, or maybe 3. And nothing feels lasting. Nothing takes root because it's virtual. Have you ever seen the movie The Truman Show? The premise is that there's a reality show about this young man named Truman, who the audience has been watching for his entire life, from the minute that he was born until his adulthood. The entire world is witness to this, and they're watching the show. And the show, I think, airs 24/7. You can turn it on whenever you'd like. It stars Jim Carrey. If you've never seen this, I don't know how that's possible, but if you've never seen it, it's a must. But in the end of the movie, when the actual Truman Show is over, well, I think I kind of spoiled it for you, but if you've never seen it, but it's worth the watch. Go watch, even if you know that little caveat. And at the end of the movie, when the show is over, the people just turn off the TV. It's a shared experience that the world has been brought into, watching this young man virtually for 30 years. But when it's over, They simply turn off the TV and go about their business. I feel like that's who we are. We're the watchers of the Truman Show. I'm telling you, if that isn't the most incredible example of a virtual connection and how quickly it's over, I don't know what is. I'm going to tell you about a little phenomenon that I've been watching unfold for a few years now. When my son was little, there was a great kids TV show called Blue's Clues. And I'm sure most of you remember that if you have children of your own, or maybe you even watched it yourself. It was an animated series, and it was a teaching tool for toddlers, preschool children. Featured a young man named Steve who would lead the children through discovering and learning. One day, Steve, the original Steve, left the show. I think the story is that as he grew older, he applied to college and went off to school. I think that's what they had said at the closing of that Steve's chapter. And apparently a generation of kids truly felt somewhat abandoned. But regardless, Steve, the actor who played Steve, resurfaced a few years ago on social media, on TikTok, under the moniker, "Hi out there, it's me, Steve." And he posted a little explanation of his personal journey and addressed the leaving of the show to an audience of millennials who were overjoyed to see him again. I got to confess, I was overjoyed to see him again. I was overjoyed to see him as a full-fledged adult because he had become a part of my life through my son Anthony watching him. But here's the basis of his content. He simply posts a video of himself saying hi and asking you how your day was. He just looks at the screen. He's looking at you, the listener, you, the audience. And he shakes his head and makes facial gestures as if he was listening to what you are saying to him. So the premise is that you would be answering his question of how you were. You would be conversing with him, and he would react by injecting a word or two like, "Wow, that sounds great," in a very calm voice. Shake his head, yes, that he's in agreement with what you are saying. And then in the end, he would give you a quick 3-word sentence telling you he was proud of you, or some lovely little closing. "You look good." He would say, "You look really great." But here's the thing. He received millions of followers and views within the first 24 hours. And the comments that are under his videos are unbelievable. People are saying, "I cried through that entire video. Thank you so much for showing up for us. Thank you for coming back into our lives. Thank you for listening to me. Thank you for being here during this difficult time. I'm so blessed to have spoken with you." Spoken with you. He touched a nerve. He was a friend from childhood who wasn't even really in the room. He was simply on a video, leaving space for people to share, and share they do. The overwhelming need for someone to listen to you, to hold space for you, was felt by millions. What does that tell us? It tells me we are in need of that. We are so much in need of that. We need to be aware of that. We need to start making a conscious effort to combat this emotional deprivation by getting ourselves into community spaces where we are simply sharing or being. And I don't mean going out to dinner and having a drink kind of connection with your friends. That's a different kind of connection. I'm talking about a sweet Magnolia connection, a Steve connection. We need to recognize it's missing. We need to take a step back and cut the cord of a virtual world that's not real. No wonder I speak to so many friends who say, on a daily basis, they're feeling sad. They're feeling down. They're not motivated. They're not inspired a great deal of the time. The mind is a powerful thing, and we're feeling it directly through a screen, Our eyes are attached to a screen, mostly on our phone, so not far away from our face. That's where we're getting our connection. We have to start doing little things. Here's a couple tips. Here's a little Chrislosophy. We have to start going over and chatting with our neighbor. We have to start finding activity that will spur conversation. We have to reach out and find an already established book club or a class, or simply pick a night where you and your friends just gather to talk, taking turns in person. Can't always be on a FaceTime call. Here's what I'm doing. I'm beginning to sponsor events once a month. Of course, I had one scheduled for a week ago, but in my neck of the woods, we had snow. And so the event was postponed. But I am rescheduling that date. And we are going to be making vision boards in our first meeting. We're going to be charting a course and writing down and cutting out things and pasting them in real time. Charting a course for our future. The point is people are signing up and they are coming to a live event where we can sit, chat, and I can motivate and we can be engaged and thinking about something that we want and sharing that with another person at our table. I'm committed to organizing these pop-up in-person sessions. We will be pouring it out, if you will. Well, maybe there won't be margaritas, but maybe there will. But I'm on a one-woman mission to get us back to relating in real life, back to sharing in real time, getting ourselves off of the place where everything looks perfect and we think we're not measuring up. We're always seeing comments online about people feeling that kind of malaise, that kind of sadness. I mean, it's okay to feel sad, but I'm telling you, you wouldn't be sad half as much of the time if you were engaging in real connection, in real time, and understanding that what's happening in that virtual time is not really feeding that need, is not really nourishing our soul, says the woman who is speaking to you in a podcast. But disclaimer, I am doing something about it in real time. This week, you have a little homework. 10 minutes, 5 minutes, 3 minutes. Peek out the door and say hi to your neighbor when they're shoveling the snow. Stop and have that little conversation when you're both coming to your car together. Do that thing that they say, there's a Progressive commercial, I think, where they say you're turning into your parents when you're talking to the cashier. You know what? Talk to the cashier. Have a shared experience. Even if it's something as simple as, oh, it's so cold outside. Make that connection. Try to incorporate those into your life. Try to incorporate more actual connection with people. And I tell you, you're going to feel 100% better. So let's close by saying it's time to go pour it out somewhere with a friend. Meanwhile, I'll be getting ready for my next visit with you, pouring it out here at the Wish House.